Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle update. The Chicago Pro Saturday night finals are out, and we have a new champion, Hunter Labrada. I don't know if a lot of people suspected that Hunter might sneak in there and knock off some of the big names, specifically Roelly Winklaar, who was, I think, the man to beat in this lineup. But Hunter Labrada surely believed it, and he delivered all the goods plus some. I had, in my prediction video, I had said that, Hunter was certainly going to be coming back with more muscle on his body. We know he's a consummate professional, like his dad was. Conditioning is always spot on. The tan is always there. The presentation is there. He takes care of all the details that he has control over, which is, and I always say this, conditioning, presentation, tan. You screw those up, you know what? You didn't do your homework. Labrada does his homework, and he did his homework here. And you know what? That's what you need to do, because we've said it a million times before. Conditioning wins shows, and conditioning won show here. Labrada's got the tools set in the sense of he's got the structure, he's got the flow to his body, but he also has tremendous conditioning. And how do you beat a guy with all those other attributes and the conditioning? And he's got more size than last year. So he came in here, and I thought the only person in this lineup that would have been able to challenge him would have been Roelly Winklaar, because Roelly is bigger. And, if Roelly brought the conditioning, I figured that he would be able to, stand next to Hunter and make him look not as good as we know he is. And what Roelly did was he came in here and he was, I personally think he over-dieted for this. I think he tried to bring his shape in a little too much, which is always a mistake with guys that are mass monsters, because they give up what makes them special, the mass. And that's exactly what Roelly did. He came in here, and if you look at the pictures, he doesn't even look that big. Labrada, I think everyone else in the top four, looks bigger than him in this shot. Brett Wilkin on the right, Maxx Charles, Hunter Labrada. I mean, when you see a guy like Roelly Winklaar get outsized, at a show of this caliber, you have to say what's going on here. Something didn't go right, and I feel bad for him, because he'd been waiting for the whole year after missing the Olympia because of COVID, to come back here and exact retribution, to stake his claim on, hey, I got a legitimate shot to win the Olympia, and he has to settle for 5th place here. I mean, this is a tremendous blow, I think, to Roelly Winklaar, and it's not anything taken away from him. He just was not the Roelly Winklaar that we were used to seeing. But Labrada was everything and more. And I think that right there alone tells you, hey, you know what? This kid is special. He knows how to peak himself. He knows how to raise himself up for the big shows. And you know what happens when you do that? You win shows. And, we always say, we give these quaint little things about how, conditioning wins shows, and we say all these funny things before the show. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, the guys that are in shape at the show do the best. And Hunter delivered in that sense. And I think that you have to say that this guy has got to be a legitimate top, 6 Olympian this year, possibly, because he is consistent. And I mean, if you look at the scorecards, the scorecards say it all. Straight first places for Hunter Labrada. Brett Wilkin, who finished in the 2nd position, I mean, that has to also be a little bit of a shocker, because who expected Brett Wilkin to come in here and beat Roelly Winklaar and beat some of these other guys in the lineup? I mean, that's we're going to talk about him in a minute, but I'm super, super impressed with what Hunter Labrada did here. And you know what? We all have to take our hat off to him. This guy is the real deal. And at the end of the day, I know his dad has got to be super happy. I love this shot, with his father just kind of gleaming. What father doesn't want to see their son, follow in their footsteps and be possibly, potentially even have more potential than them? I mean, that would be, as a dad, and I know my father probably felt the same way. That's got to be, something special. So, congratulations to all the Labradas. It was a well-deserved victory, and I think he's going to be dangerous at the Olympia because of his consistency, and that right there says it all. Because of his consistency, he will be dangerous. And you know what? you cannot discount. I mean, everyone always wrote Branch Warren off, right, on the Olympia stage. All the time it happened to him. It was like every year, Branch would show up and people would never talk about him. And then he would be up on that stage and be in great shape and be a freak. And he would beat guys that were just better than him. And that's what Labrada is going to do for his whole career until he finally is the man to beat, so to speak. And maybe we'll see him as being Mr. Olympia one year. It is a definite possibility. I mean, he's got the mindset. He's got the breeding, he's got the genetics, he's got the backing of his dad. I mean, when you have a family that is a bodybuilding family, I mean, how much better is it going to get than that? I mean, right? I mean, most of us have parents that don't know anything about bodybuilding. My father didn't know anything about bodybuilding, I was like, he would tell me, bring home the VHS tape, watch the VHS tape. Not that he wasn't supportive, he just didn't understand the sport, and that's the way it goes, and unfortunately that's a lot of our parents. But, Labrada's got that grooming. It's like the kid who was on the soccer team and his dad was the coach. I mean, he's been playing soccer since he's 3 years old. Brett Wilkin, though, I got to bring him up because he really, really impressed me a lot. And the reason why he impressed me was because no one expected him to come in here and be as good as he was. And that, to me, that's a professional. That's a guy who worked his ass off all year round after the last year and made improvements. Didn't just coast. He made improvements. He's bigger. He's filled in the gaps, in his physique. He brought tremendous conditioning. You can tell, I could see the pained look in his face. You can tell he suffered. And once again, it goes back to conditioning, does well. Conditioning wins shows, but it also places you very high, higher than people might expect. And he beat Roelly Winklaar. Come on, he beat a lineup here that was spectacular. And you have to, when a guy can come in and be this dominant, and I don't know where he's going to, wind up down the road, I think he's got a tremendous career ahead of him because I think that he's a hard worker. He loves the sport. You can tell he loves what he's doing. And as long as he can keep himself healthy, I don't see any reason why we're not going to see him be around for a very long time and be a very dominant competitor. So congratulations to Brett. I mean, it was a tremendous, accomplishment. And of course, our good friend Maxx Charles. Max is another guy that everyone's always writing off. No one talks about, and then he shows up. The reason why Max gets written off a lot, and the reason why he does so well all the time, is because number one, he's got one of the best upper bodies in pro bodybuilding. His legs are not his best body part, but they're no longer weak. They're just not a strong body part for him. They balance. His upper body is tremendous. I mean, the guy's got the best arms, shoulders, chest, and possibly back, in bodybuilding. But his weakness obviously is because his legs don't necessarily match his upper body. People think he's not as good as he is. But when you get him up there in a lineup, and I'm not the Olympia lineup, of course, when you get him up in a lineup that's challenging, like this show was, but where he brings his best conditioning, which he did, he's very difficult to beat because he can stand with these other guys. Maybe he can't stand with the very, very top 3 guys in the world because then you see his legs, deficit. But in this lineup, he's very, very competitive. And you can make a case for him being in second place here. I wouldn't have a problem. I like Brett Wilkin, but I think Max has got a little bit more freak factor going on. So even though it was a unanimous first place, second place, third place, fourth place, I think Max absolutely could have placed higher and no one would have complained. Once again, I think this is a good balanced look for him. I think if he goes any leaner or tries to dry out too much, his legs will get too small. And if he comes in any fuller, he's not going to be hard enough and have him. So this was a good compromise. And I think that this is a look that Max should look to bring every time he steps on stage. Because if he does that, he's going to always place well. Once again, it's always going to depend. I always tell people, you can't guarantee placings on people. All you can do is guarantee that, all you can do is show up at your best and then see where the cards fall. And if they fall, the right way for you, then great. Who knew that, Roelly was going to come in off? Everyone probably was thinking, well, I'm going to be, wherever Roelly is, I'll be below him, because he's probably going to be the guy to beat. And he didn't even place, top 4. He had to settle for 5th. Now, let's talk about Mo Shabaan for a minute because I really like this guy. He's really consistent. He's a guy who's also been improving every year. He's a sleeper guy. He's a guy you can fall asleep on. And when they first do the call-outs, you don't even notice him. He's kind of like off to the side. And then all of a sudden, the more the guys pose, you start saying, hey, this guy's got really good quads. Look at those lower teardrops. Look at the lat flare. Look at the conditioning. Look at those perfectly boxed abs he's got. You start noticing the guy's got a lot of gifts. His calves are a little small, but his quads are ridiculous. I mean, they're really impressive. And he brings good conditioning. And that's a good combination. And I'm going to talk about the reason I say and he brings good conditioning, because when we talk about Hassan Mostafa in a minute, we're going to talk about freak factor, but maybe a guy who's not as conditioned as Mohammed Shabaan. You could make a case for him placing as high as second here. I think Hunter was a clear-cut winner, but I think second, third, fourth all could have been flip-flop. No one would have complained. It was very close between those three guys. I think Roelly actually, was the guy who probably got what he deserved, fifth place. And unfortunately, none of us who are bodybuilding fans wanted to see that, right? We want to see Roelly Winklaar win these shows because Roelly's a freak. No one wants to see Roelly win the Olympia more than I do, And I love Big Ramy, but I want to see Roelly up there battling it out with Big Ramy because we know that Roelly has the size. Now, I don't know if Roelly – look, my whole thing on Roelly is what I think happened, and I don't know for sure. I don't talk to Roelly on a regular basis. And maybe Roelly doesn't know. Maybe Roelly's got to go back to the drawing board too here. But what I think happened with Roelly Winklaar was that he wanted to come in so freaky hard for this show because he wanted to show everyone, hey, look, I'm gonna beat Ramy at the Olympia. I could bring the freaky conditioning, and he made a mistake. And I'm going to tell you why he made a mistake. Because this happened to me in my career, and I've seen it happen to other guys. They tell you, look, come in shredded, and you're going to win you're going to win the show, you're going to win the Arnold, you're going to win the Olympia, because that's what we want. We want to see you shredded. But what they don't understand is that, and what maybe the mistake the competitors make and the coaches that help is that sometimes ultra shredded dry, okay, too much so, you can overdo it. And then what happens is you lose the wow factor. Okay, and I've seen this happen throughout Roelly's career. Remember when he used to work with Grandma, the coach he had originally? She made this mistake a few times with him too. She brought him in great once, and then she brought him in too. Then they were trying to get him too hard, and he was looking smaller and smaller. And when Roelly's smaller, you see his flaws. You see, hey, you know what? His waist isn't that really that small. It's a little big. It would be like if Jay Cutler, okay, who also did not have a small waist, but he had ridiculously wide shoulders and cap delts. And so as long as he came in full, the V taper was insane. Roelly's got a great V taper when he's full and big and round. But he over-dieted here, I think, and he probably over-diureticked a little bit and dehydrated too much. And his legs look small, okay? And his upper body lost some pop to it. And even look, his side tricep is, when he puts that arm down, he doesn't even have to even hit a pose. He just has to lock his arm down. He should be blowing everyone off the stage. And I got news for you. Labrada beat him easily in that side tricep pose. So Roelly made I wouldn't call it an amateur mistake. He made a mistake because of the fact that he was out of the game for a year, and then he wanted to come back and be the best he can be. He's very dangerous. Don't write Roelly Winklaar off. We'll see him probably in 2 weeks in Tampa. I hope we do at least. And he's going to come in full and bigger. Hopefully he won't overshoot it the other direction. And he's going to be very dangerous, okay? Because he doesn't have a lack of muscle here. He has a lack of fullness. Probably tomorrow morning when he wakes up after eating for 2 days, he's probably going to look like 30 pounds bigger than he is right now. He might even weigh 30 pounds more and look just as hard. And once again, that was a mistake. And I don't blame anyone. It's very easy to fall prey to that, especially when you hear every single person in the press and all the judges saying, just come in harder. Just come in a little harder, right? I mean, isn't that what everyone always says? Just come in a little hard. Well, you know what? Just coming in a little harder is not the solution sometimes, because sometimes you wind up overdoing it. And that's what happened with Roelly. Let's talk about Hassan Mostafa, who finishes in sixth here. And I want to bring him up because normally I wouldn't even go past six, but you know what? Since I'm doing I'm spending some time tonight doing this analysis, I want to do it right. He's one of the freakiest guys in all bodybuilding. This guy has got some tool set. I mean, this guy's got the freakiest of legs. He's got great arms. He's got great lats. He's got a good taper. He's a little narrow, shoulder-wise, almost like a Phil Heath narrow, but he's so big that it doesn't matter. But the problem with the physique like that is if you don't come in ultra dry and peeled, you start to look a little boxy and you start seeing his flaws, okay? And the flaws are that he's not showing enough detail in his body. Now, he's been doing a lot of shows this year, and I don't know if his body is just burnt out. Sometimes you get to a point where you can eat 0 calories and not lose a pound because your body is just rebelling from what it's doing. From what Chris Aceto tells me, that's not the case because Chris works with him, but I just don't think his body's responding anymore. I know he wants to get to the Olympia. That's his goal. And the guy's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He's a hard worker. I think he's got one of those metabolisms where his body just wants to build muscle. It's obvious. I mean, the guy's the biggest guy up there, height per square feet, whatever. However, he's got to do whatever it takes to lose that extra weight. I don't know if it means eating less food, okay, or doing more cardio. I'm sure he's being pushed to the max already, but something is not working, okay? His body is holding onto something, and I don't know what the problem is, if it's a metabolic situation or if his body's just in kind of a rebellious stage, or if he hasn't been doing this long. Maybe his body's just not that mature. Some guys at 125 pounds can get in shape, and show a lot of muscle separations over that. Other guys, they can be training for a long period of time, a short period of time, have a lot of muscle, but they don't really show a lot of detail. Ramy didn't show a lot of detail early in his career. He was a little tighter than this, but not much. But Ramy's structure was so big that he was imposing. So Hassan Mostafa's got to spend time and get that formula down. And just, I think more and more training is just going to lead to better muscle maturity. And hopefully over the next couple of years, Akeem Williams had the same problem. You could feed the guy like a bikini competitor, he wouldn't lose weight. And so I think once he finally gets the formula, he's going to be super dangerous. Looking at the show as a whole, I think you have to be very happy as a bodybuilding fan that the Chicago Pro was a success. And the reason why it was a success was because you had a top 5, top 6 guys. And Zach Merkel looked great in 7-2. I'll talk about him on the radio show on Heavy Muscle Radio Monday night. But this was a really good lineup with good competitors, most of them in very, very good shape. It was a tough battle. I'm sure it was not an easy decision for the judges. Yes, Labrada did enough to win for sure. But the rest of the placings were kind of tough. And where do you put Roelly Winklaar? I mean, when they first called these guys out, it was Roelly Hunter, right? I mean, that's where, and then these other guys worked their way up when the judges realized that Roelly was not at his best. That's an exciting show. I've gone to lots and lots of bodybuilding shows over the year. Not that many in the last year and a half since COVID hit, but I've been to a lot of shows. And I'm telling you, the ones where it's this close are the ones you want to go to. They're the most exciting, especially when you're in the crowd and you can feel that everyone's screaming and these guys are up there for a long time because the judges are making them work because they can't really determine, what the placings are because everyone has a slightly different look to them. But that's why it's important that you bring your best to the stage. And once again, Hunter Labrada, the reason he's so good, tan, presentation, conditioning. Dexter Jackson fits into that category. Phil Heath fits into that category. Consummate professionals that always hit the mark. Okay, especially when the stakes were the highest. They always show up in shape. They always have good presentation. They always have a good tan. They never leave anything to chance. Those are the guys who always do well. And that's why Hunter Labrada is going to be a great pro for many years to come because he has that mentality. And, you either got it or you don't. But if you don't have it, you can still get it. But you cannot let those variables just fall where they may. That's the only variables you have total control over heading into a show. Hunter, congratulations on the huge win. Congratulations to all the guys in the show. It was a tremendous show. Tim Gardner, great job once again. And I'm glad we're seeing some great competition leading up to the Arnold and the Olympia. For now, though, I'm Dave Palumbo with an RX Muscle News Update.